Hello everyone, this is Voice of Ethiopia from Ethiopian Satellite Television from Addis Ababa studio. I am Teshome Kesele. I have got human rights activist Dagnachew Teshome all the way from Los Angeles here with me. Stay with us. Dagnachew, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Well, I think we have to start by asking what's the purpose of your visit in Ethiopia. I know you came all the way from Los Angeles. You are here in Addis Ababa. You just arrived. So what's the purpose of your visit?
I'm here in response to the call, the national call, to help Ethiopia in the time of need. We are facing an existential threat, and I'm here in response to that.
So, but people are, I mean, especially the State Department or the American government telling all the Americans to leave from Ethiopia and warning that there's a huge danger if you come to Ethiopia, especially Addis Ababa.
Well, firstly, I believe there is something sinister about all that. Somebody's trying to stage this self-fulfilling prophecy, something that they want to happen. They are speaking of it as if it has happened. I've been here 3 days. I came on Sunday morning. I have traveled around Addis. I've seen the situation. It's calm as ever. The warnings that have been coming out, it appears to me, I'm almost certain that it is something concocted to create a diplomatic stampede so that foreign diplomats and NGOs and corporations would flee from Ethiopia and cause economic and other destruction to immobilize the government of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed.
And tourism is affected.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, when a federal agency such as the FAA in the United States makes a statement saying that Ethiopian Airlines might be struck with a surface-to-air missile, that to me is something unprecedented. It is almost a ploy to destroy one of the most significant source of foreign currency for the Ethiopian Airlines and the emblem of this country. So I see this coordinated attack against the Ethiopian state by the United States, by Biden's administration, and also by Western governments and agencies that dance to the tune of the Biden administration. It is a very sinister, diabolical plan by the Biden administration to undermine Ethiopia, to give not so covert support to the TPLF. I'm livid. As an American citizen, it makes me ashamed of this administration. It is so sad. It is unholy. It is evil. There's no other terminology to describe what the Biden administration is trying to do to Ethiopia.
Most Ethiopian people believe that America is attacking Ethiopia in a heavy way and doesn't seem to attack the TPLF, rather helping TPLF. And Ethiopia is, like you said, is an ancient nation, very important for East Africa. And we had, I mean, as in Ethiopia had a long journey to be here and trying to, form a government and fighting terrorism and all the rest of it. Why America wanted to attack Ethiopia, if you believe America is attacking Ethiopia?
Well, I think it's quite obvious that America is doing everything in its power to destabilize Ethiopia and the government of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. When the TPLF was ransacking Ethiopia, committing unspeakable atrocities against the Ethiopian people, I wrote a letter, an open letter to the then ambassador, Michael Rayner, and I asked him how come he's so silent when only 5 kilometers away from his office, men are being castrated, women are being gang raped. And this is a report that the State Department received through the desk of the ambassador. I wrote a letter to the ambassador at the time and asked him, Don't you smell the blood of innocent people in the air? Can't you hear the cry of agony of men being castrated only 5 kilometers away from your office? America listened when men were being castrated. It listened to the agony of the Ethiopian people for 27 years. And now that we have overthrown this demonic government.
But then they didn't do anything, did they?
They didn't do anything. Then they supported the TPLF government to the tunes of 30, 40, 50 billion dollars. Now the Ethiopian people have violently overthrown this diabolical government of the TPLF. The US is trying to reinstate it. And that will never happen. That will never happen. They're not going to do to Ethiopia as they did in Libya, as they did in Yemen, Iraq. It's not going to happen. That's why I came here.
You think that's the plan? Afghanistan, Libya, or other Yemen and other countries? But America have been to many of these places.
Yeah, I mean, with all honesty, wherever the United States administration intervened, the people of the country in which they intervened were left with rubbles instead of country. Their country was destroyed. They were left with millions of refugees. We have the Yemeni refugees here in Addis. We have Syrian refugees even here in Addis. Okay? So this is a result of US intervention in other countries. Intentionally distributed news about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq that were proved to be gross misinformation resulted in tens of millions of people being displaced. An ancient country being destroyed. And that is US intervention to you. That's what US intervention does. Before Feldman came to Ethiopia, he actually predicted that Ethiopia is going to be worse than Libya. That is what, to me, looks like he was working towards.
So this is the message from US Embassy Addis Ababa, and it says the department reminds US citizens of the ongoing possibility of terrorist attack in Ethiopia. Terrorists may attack with little or no warning, targeting diplomatic facilities, tourist locations, transportation hubs, markets, shopping malls, Western businesses, restaurants, resorts, local government facilities, and other public areas. US citizens are strongly encouraged to maintain a high level of vigilance and avoid areas frequented by foreigners. America, I mean, these State Departments or the embassy here kept giving us information about the plan for the terrorist group. They were telling us they're here, they're going to be there, and all sorts of things. But the question now raising from Ethiopian community, how does America knows the plan of the terrorist? And if America knows that, and how come they don't want to do anything about it, rather just simply asking the US citizens to be protected or leave the country?
America has intelligence apparatus all over the world. There are eyes in the sky. There are sources of information among the people. They groomed the TPLF. They ushered the TPLF to take over power in 1991. They are their children, so to speak. They supported them, they raised them, and they brought them into Addis to take power. For the last 27 years, the United States funded the TPLF. Not a single American died in Somalia. Ethiopians died in Somalia so that Americans don't die in Somalia. So they had a maidservant in the TPLF. The TPLF served as a maidservant of the United States for the last 27 years. They know every single thing that the TPLF is capable. They have intelligence. They know what happens around the world because America is one of the most advanced nations on earth with technology that's second to none. So they have information. When they tell us something is possibly will happen or is probably will happen, they have information. The question is, if they care about people's lives, not just American lives, we are the same. We are human beings created in the image of God. And America, as a country that believes in God we trust, as an American citizen, as a God-fearing human being, the soul of any human being has equal value to an American life. So if you see an imminent danger that's out there, it's the responsibility of this government to tell the Ethiopian government about the threat, not to try to create a stampede, uncertainty, and for people to leave their cities, run away, create panic, and to bring down the government. To me, that looks like that's what's happening. If it was a genuine concern, what I would see is the US government providing the information, actionable information, to the Ethiopian government so that we can mitigate these risks. But that's not what's happening. What's happening is a direct attempt by the Biden administration to destabilize the Ethiopian government, which is duly elected, the first democratically elected government in the history of Ethiopia, with all its faults. But the United States is not pleased with this government because this government has not availed itself to be the maid servant for the United States.
Right. I just saw a news yesterday that the Democrats in Georgia were pretty shocked about the results of what happened to Virginia, changing the government from Democrats to Republicans. So they probably worried about, same thing happening everywhere else. So they were trying, I heard that they were trying to speak to Eritreans and Ethiopians. So what do you think the Ethiopians or Eritreans would do? Will they carry on?
Everybody has their interest. And so Ethiopians and Eritreans, we have our interest. Although the domestic policy of the Democrats is very appealing to immigrant communities such as ours, when they do something evil to our birthland, actually to any country, when the United States or the policymakers or the military-industrial complex, the people that manufacture the military armaments and who need the market to sell it, they need conflicts all over the world so that they have a market to sell their commodities. And so war is good for business, according to them. Therefore, when my country does something that is morally repugnant, it is my responsibility, God-given responsibility as a God-fearing person, as a human being, to speak against it, to speak truth to power. So what Ethiopians are doing in opposing the Democrats is to put a stop to this sinister, evil plan that the Biden administration is executing. Several months ago, over 5-6 months ago, a couple colleagues and I would mention their names, Dr. Aklok Birara and Dr. Jonas Beru, we've had an interview with him. We started this campaign to organize Ethiopians and to demand that we get heard. The Democrats have taken us for granted for decades. 90% of Ethiopians vote for the Democratic Party. Ever since I became a US citizen, I have never voted for any other party but the Democratic Party. For the first time in my life as a US citizen, I switched. I vote for the Republicans now. Hundreds of thousands of Ethiopians who live in the United States have also made that determinations. So what happened in Virginia is a demonstration of how upset the Ethiopian community is. And we made a difference, and they know it. The margin prior to Ethiopians starting to vote for the Republican Party was maybe 10 points. We chewed down those 10 points and we brought it to 1 point. At one point, it was like 49 to 50 and so forth. And then over 60,000 Ethiopians in Virginia voted, and we made sure that the Democrats get the message that you are hurting our country, our birthland. What you're doing is evil. We're not going to sit down and watch. Although the policy of the Democrats is good for locally for the United States, it's United States policy, the foreign policy is despicable. It's pure evil. So based on that, we voted against the Democrat and we voted with the Republicans. Now, the Democratic Party controls the 3 branches of government. They control the presidency, they control the Senate and the House. However, the margin in the House is so narrow, it's hairline thick margin. In the Senate, it has not been this close since 1890s. Okay? It's very, very narrow. So we have decided, the Ethiopian community and the Eritrean community have decided we're going to take that majority they have in the Senate. We'll do that just by taking the seat in Atlanta, in Georgia, because the Senate-elect in Georgia was elected because Ethiopians campaigned for him. Okay, there was Biden won by less than 12,000 votes in Georgia. So we have 3, 4, 5 times that number in Georgia. We're going to make sure that the Democrats will lose that seat and many more. So we'll take away their majority in the Senate, and we'll also take away their majority in the House. That's how we punish them, through our votes.
Right. They seem to get that because I heard that they were having meetings because they were pretty shocked about the no more movement as well. But as you are Ethiopian-born American, and you've lived, I would say, most of your lives in America. So, but the American foreign policy is probably very dangerous to countries like Ethiopia. However, but the people of America, the society, are very different to the politicians. And do you think that if they know the truth, that they will, stand for the truth and for this poor nation? And if that's the case,
I want to say this. I've lived in America since I was 17. I've lived in America for the last 44 years. Americans, families took me in as a young fella, and I am who I am because of the kindness and compassion of American citizens, families that made me part of their family. Americans are the kindest, most compassionate people that I know. They detest evil, injustice. They will stand with people whose rights have been violated. They stand with justice, with courage. Of course, there are evil people in every society, but the average American person cannot be characterized by saying anything but kind, compassionate, beautiful soul. They're beautiful people. The problem is the power that be, the power that controls the government, the military, the industrial complex, has a very strong hold on the media. When President Trump spoke of fake news, CNN is fake news, New York Times is fake news, and so forth, we were laughing at President Trump. But now we know how the media, absolutely, actually, fake is an understatement. This media, such as CNN, are pure evil in what they do. They see atrocities being committed by the TPLF. They close their eyes, they turn their back and cover the atrocities by the shadow that they cast on the evil. And they focus on the victims, the Ethiopian people, the Ethiopian government, and they make you look like the victimizers. Okay, that's what is happening. And Americans do not see what is happening. They only see it through channels such as CNN, Associated Press, even in the European realm, in the BBC and Agence France Presse and so forth. So you cannot speak of something, or you cannot speak against something that you don't know exists. That is what's happening. It's the media. The media is following the government's policy. For instance, recently, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, all of these social media platforms, they denied even the Prime Minister of Ethiopia access to those platforms. They shut down his account. They shut down the account of numerous channels, like on Facebook and on YouTube and Twitter. Why? To me, it looks like this modus operandi of a rapist. A rapist, before he attacks the victim, he gags the victim. He covers the eyes of the victim with a duct tape so that she doesn't scream or she doesn't see his face. That is what's happening to Ethiopia. It's prior to the attempted rape against our country, they gagged us. That's what they did. All Ethiopian voices have been gagged. That's what's happening.
So how can we get the truth out there for not only Americans, so Europeans and Asians and Africans, because we know that most people genuinely are good.
I think the first thing that we need to start from is from our families, our friends, our neighbors. Before I came here, I let my friends know, my neighbors know where I'm going and why I'm leaving my family, why I'm closing door on my business, why I'm saying goodbye to my kids and my wife, why I'm here. I left all my projects dangling and I came here, and I make sure my neighbors knew why. And people cried with me when I left, because we sit there at Starbucks, we talk about the projects, we discuss what we can do together, and we had plans with people in my neighborhood. Now those plans are not to be. I might not go back. I came here knowing that well. Okay? So we start from our friends, our neighbors, our community, and we let them know. And also we use our social media. You know, Facebook cannot shut down every account. YouTube cannot shut down every account. But since the TPLF has billions of dollars under its command, it will attempt, it will bribe. It will bribe government officials, it will bribe reporters, it will bribe the CEOs of major non-profit organizations, and it have done that, and it has been very effective for them. But they have the money, we have the numbers. That's why we'll win. And we have the truth, most importantly, we have the truth on our side. God is on our side. That's why I'm here. I'm 100% sure that we will win. And we have to speak truth to power. We have to call them out. The United States, my country, the government that represents me, when it does engage in evil, we should speak up, whatever the consequence. And we do this, like I do this in the spirit of tens of thousands of Americans, black and white, who marched on the streets of Harlem protesting the invasion of fascist Italy in 1935. They went out on the street, even though the government of President Roosevelt at the time declared itself neutral in the face of this atrocious invasion, the gassing of Ethiopians, innocent farmers, the killing of millions. The Roosevelt administration claimed that it was neutral. The American people refused. They came out on the streets in tens of thousands, and said we oppose the invasion of Ethiopia by fascist Italy. 2,000 African American men and women signed up, volunteered to fight alongside Ethiopians.
Yeah, to come and join the
war. To come and join the war. You can see some footage from the place of registration where African American men and women are coming to register, and one footage showed this physician, and then he's saying, oh, I'm here to register, to volunteer, to fight for Ethiopia. And then the person will ask him, what do you do? The gentleman says, I'm a physician. And then the guy is saying, why do you want to go to? He said, because it's my country. It's my people. I want to die for them. That is how African Americans sided with Ethiopia and gave their lives for Ethiopia, many of them. And there's notably, there was Colonel John Robinson, who came to Ethiopia and helped Emperor Haile Selassie establish the first Ethiopian Air Force. It was called Brown Condor. So, Americans are compassionate people, God-fearing people. It says in the dollar bill, it says, in God we trust. Indeed, in God we trust. As Americans, in God we trust. The problem is the media casts its evil shadow and covers the truth. That is the problem in America.
Right. Well, we had people like the second invasion. We had people like Sylvia Pankhurst and other people from United Kingdom joining the war, helping the government here. You took out a letter, an open letter. We'll play out the video.
November 25, 2021. An open letter to President Joseph R. Biden Jr., the United States Congress, the Congressional Black Caucus, and the American people. I'm writing to you as a deeply concerned Ethiopian American citizen. I believe that the Biden administration's current policy regarding the conflict in northern Ethiopia is self-defeating and morally misguided. First, permit me to indulge in a few words about myself. I came to the United States 44 years ago as a 17-year-old fleeing from the persecution of the communist regime. I have done my best to contribute to our society, working my way through college, earning 3 undergraduate degrees and a master's degree. I'm an entrepreneur with an issued patent for a medical device to help individuals with bowel incontinence. In addition, I have dedicated my entire life to the cause of human rights. I'm a co-founder of the Global Alliance for the Right of Ethiopians and Faithful Works International. Now, to the matter at hand. Ethiopia is fighting for its life. As we speak, separatist rebels of the Tigray People's Liberation Front, TPLF, occupy and are ransacking areas in Amhara and Afar region, causing severe threat to regional stability. Amnesty International Secretary General has reported, and I quote, despicable acts of TPLF fighters that amount to war crimes and potentially crimes against humanity. They defy morality or any iota of humanity, unquote. In light of this, it is mystifying to see the U.S. reaction to the crisis in the country. On September 17, President Joseph R. Biden Jr. issued an executive order providing the Department of Treasury with the authority to levy sanctions in connection with the conflict. So far, the sanction has focused on weakening the Ethiopian side of the conflict. Specifically, sanctions have been levied at the Eritrean government, alongside threats to sanction Ethiopia as well. The Eritreans are allies of Ethiopia, stationed at the invitation of the sovereign government in Addis Ababa. Therefore, statements by Secretary of State Antony Blinken indicating that the Eritrean military is, and I quote, threatening the integrity of the Ethiopian state, unquote, are at best misleading. This policy is equivalent to taking sides in the conflict against the victim. And to put it bluntly, it is morally repugnant. The Biden administration should stop its covert and not so covert support to the TPLF and undermining the stability of Ethiopia. Leaking information about U.S. Special Ops troops positioned near Ethiopia for potential assistance to the U.S. Embassy, issuing false and misleading information, including by the FAA, in an attempt to intimidate Prime Minister Abiy's administration and create a diplomatic stampede and mass evacuation from the country is contemptible. To be sure, the U.S. has the prerogative to withdraw all of its embassy personnel and citizens from Ethiopia now. There is no need for a veiled military threat against a peaceful country, Ethiopia. It is in the American tradition of rejecting evil and injustice, no matter the source, that I declare unequivocally my stand against the Biden administration's assault on the sovereignty of my birthland, Ethiopia. It is in the spirit of tens of thousands of fellow American citizens, both black and white, who in 1935 took to the streets of Harlem, condemning fascist Italy's brazen invasion of Ethiopia, even though President Theodore Roosevelt declared the United States neutral, that I write this letter. It is in the spirit of over 2,000 fellow African American citizens who volunteered to go to Ethiopia and fight the fascist invader that I take an unwavering stand against the neo-colonialist gesture of the Biden administration. It is in the spirit of the African American pilot, Colonel John C. Robinson, the Brown Condor, who helped establish Ethiopia's first air force to defend against fascist Italy, that I, as an American citizen, say no to the administration's evil act in the name of the American people. It is indeed in the spirit of these fellow American heroes that I speak truth to power, that I call out the injustice on your watch. I have accordingly traveled to Ethiopia, and I'm sending this urgent message to you from my birthland. I'm here to help protect innocent women and children that are being gang raped, their communities, their livelihood ransacked, and they forced to flee because of atrocities being committed, as I write this letter, by the TPLF that the Biden administration supports covertly and not so covertly. I ask members of Congress, members of the Congressional Black Caucus, not to allow the US-sponsored, sinister, violent breakup of one of the oldest Christian nations in the world. If you stand with Ethiopia in the time of her need by saying, no, not on my watch, generations of African American children will honor you. Africans and people of African descent all over the world, certainly all justice-oriented people will honor you. You will be honored for your stand against this diabolical action by misguided politicians. Standing with Ethiopia as she fights an existential battle is the right thing to do. If you choose complicity through your silence, history will judge you. I ask the Biden administration and the Congressional Black Caucus to do the right thing. Please support Ethiopia in her hour of need. I look forward to your reply. Respectfully, Dagnachew, Teshome, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, November 25, 2021.
Tell me what the motive is. What are the most important points in that letter?
Well, the most important point in the letter is that as an Ethiopian American, as a human being that despises injustice, I have a moral responsibility to speak against injustice, whatever the source. So, although the Biden administration is advising Americans not to go to Ethiopia, and all this other stuff that you read earlier, for me, coming here and opposing the policy of the Biden administration, the sanction against Eritrea and Ethiopia, it is impossible for me, as a human being, as a man, not to speak. My first responsibility is to my God. My first responsibility is to know the truth and speak the truth to power. And so I came here to let Ethiopians, citizens of my birthland, to know that I'm with them. I will sacrifice even my soul, if it was mine, for Ethiopia.
Mr. Dagnachew Teshome, human rights activist, you're here all the way from Los Angeles, America. Thank you for coming and good luck with your plans.
Thank you.
This is all we have for today from Voice of Ethiopia, ESAT Television, Addis Ababa.